Hey guys, welcome into the Stinkin Truth Podcast. Mark Schlereth here in New York City. Mike Evans out there in Denver, Colorado. Hey, I miss you, buddy. But soon we'll be back together again. Tomorrow is the last day of my first set of shows, and then we're gonna be rolling. So I'll be back on radio. But it's always good to connect, man. How are you, bud?
It's been great watching you on FS1 with your show, Breakfast Ball, because I always see you with a hat on. And you got a hat on again, but on this show, you display your glorious lettuce. I do not know why you do not let our viewers see that glorious mane of yours. Look at that. Look at that.
I am a hat guy. I've always been a hat guy. I will always be a hat guy. I don't know what it is. I just like a hat is part of kind of what makes me comfortable. I don't know why I've always been a hat guy. I just always have. So it makes me comfortable. It makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside to have a hat on top of my head. And so there you have it. I have hair and, the other thing is you can kind of go like when you roll into the gym and your hat's pulled way down like this, people don't ask you a lot of questions. You just so.
Because you're such a celebrity that you're constantly stopped wherever you go.
Well, right? I'm pretty big time.
Especially now that you're in New York City,
I'm in New York. I mean, a lot of people call me the city stink. I mean, that just is. Hey, sorry about it.
Russell Wilson has been great for this podcast for a couple of years now, and now we get to see it play out in Pittsburgh. The official announcement: Mike Tomlin made it. Russell Wilson will be the starter. Did you ever really think it was up for grabs?
I did. I did think that Justin Fields might outplay him. But ultimately they've made that decision. Yeah, it's just amazing. It's like out of the frying pan, into the fryer. What do you want? I know they didn't protect well in the game that, one of the games that Russell played, and he took 3 sacks, and the Rusties all said, well, nobody could have gotten out of that, but he ran himself into one at least, didn't climb the pocket. That it wasn't well protected. I get that, but it's just who he is. And then, we get a stat on the show the other day. It's 2 most sack quarterbacks in the NFL the last 2 seasons. Russ, after missing 4 games, took 100 sacks in the last 2 seasons. 100, Mike, and he missed 4 games. Oh my! Justin Fields was second in the league, taking 99, and he missed 6 games. So you look at that and go, "Oh gosh, that's just a recipe for disaster." But it's just interesting because, listen, could Russ have some success if they really run the ball? And Russ just admits that, hey, there's certain things I'm not very good at, so we've got to do this, that, and the other. And if it could be about the Pittsburgh Steelers, then I think, with that defense and Arthur Smith, their offensive coordinator, he's a great run design guy, plays in a lot of heavy kind of big personnel packages, multiple backs and all that stuff. Do I think that they may be able to compete for a playoff spot? Well, yeah, but the issue is, and this is what got Russ out of Seattle and get Russ out of Denver, is Russ isn't willing to admit that he's not good at stuff. He's delusional. And if you're not willing to admit it, then you can't fix it, right? The first step in solving a problem is admitting that you have one. And there's nothing wrong. Hey, listen, man, I'll tell you, there were things that limited me as a player, especially toward the end of my career with the injuries that I had. And, we ended up winning back-to-back Super Bowls in Denver. And we got to the point in 1996 where I pulled on a play in Cincinnati, and I got my ankle twisted, and it was a bad injury. Like, I went in the next game the next week all taped up, and my whole leg was black and blue. It was a bad twist. But I'm a tough son of a bitch, so I played. But anyhow, nobody else would have. I mean,
no. They would have the leg amputated.
Probably. That's probably exactly what I'm glad you said it, not me, because I don't want to continue to pat myself on the back. Mm-hmm. But anyhow, we took those pulling plays out of our offense. And so Mike Shanahan, our head coach, instead of saying, hey, listen, this really limits us. He can't do this. He can't do A, B, and C. Mike Shanahan said, screw A, B, and C. He's so good at X, Y, and Z, we can't afford not to have him in our lineup. And so we're just faced, the X, Y, and Z stuff. And even in that season, even in the, was it the 98 season? We lost. Yeah, it was 98 season because it was the first game we lost. We 13-0. And we go to the Giants to play the Giants. We put in power, and Danny Neal was our right guard. I was the left guard. And we wanted to run power to the opposite side, to the left side. And so, or to the right side, excuse me. So we wanted to run 16 power where I normally would pull. So we got to the point where we're just like, screw it. We'll just move Danny at left guard for a play and Mark will go to right guard. And so we called the play. Bam, I bump into right guard. Danny moves into left guard. We block it. We get yardage. And then we bounce back to the opposite side. Like, it was a giveaway, but nobody really picked up on it. So I actually played snaps at right guard against the Giants one season. Like, just so we could run that play, and then we could set up the play action after it or off of it. So it's just one of those things that, like, you have to admit there's things that you can't do. And I just don't know that Russ is ready for that. I don't know about you, but I do believe at some point the Pittsburgh Steelers will play themselves out of the playoffs. So you look at the second half of their schedule, Mike, after their bye week, they play Washington, and then it's like Cincinnati, Cleveland, Baltimore, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Baltimore. It is a murderer's row. Philadelphia's in there. Like, they may not win a game after week 9. So that's how tough it is.
All right. So not factoring in an injury. Okay. This is good health. Russell Wilson starts how many games before he loses his job?
I'm going to say 5.
5. Okay.
5. I just think that the way the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to have to be built, I think what they're going to have to build themselves on is the running game and using the quarterback in that as a quarterback element in that run game. Because when you do that, you can, if you split the defense in half, right? And you're thinking in that front box, an 8-man box, there's 4 guys on each side in a formation. It may be a little 5-on-1 if you got like a 2 tight end set or whatever. But with the quarterback run element in football, you gain a blocker. So what you can do is divide the field in half, split the field, and then you can get 5 blockers on 4 guys and the quarterback run. So you create a situation where, in a gap sound defense, they don't really have a player for that quarterback because he turns into the running back. And so you're gaining an advantage. It's what Baltimore has done with Lamar Jackson for better part of a decade now, is they've created a numbers count advantage in the run game for the quarterback designed run. And Justin Fields is one dynamic son of a gun. Dan Campbell told me last year, hey man, what keeps me awake at night is Justin Fields. When they were playing the Bears, I was calling the game. When Justin Fields runs the ball, that keeps me up at night. That's what I'm worried about. We've got to find a way to stop that. And I think he gives them an element that Russ doesn't give them, and a better chance to lean on that defense and win.
All right, so 5 games. We'll track that in the early part of the season.
Great.
Still, as you and I are talking right now, we're still about 10 days away from the 49ers opening up against the Jets. As you look ahead, do you anticipate both Trent Williams and Brandon Aiyuk playing, not playing, one or the other? What does your crystal ball tell you?
So I've told you this before. I don't see them signing Brandon Aiyuk to the contract that he wants. Now, there's some speculation out there on the open market. The Commanders are making a play for Brandon Aiyuk, and they did trade away Jahan Dotson to Philly. So that would make sense that they're making room for Aiyuk, right? So that one actually we'll have to watch and see how that plays out. There's no talk about Trent Williams, which leads me to believe the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch are just going, hey, listen, Trent Williams is so beastly. Like, that dude tries to murder people on a football field. There are people doing 5 to 10 in the state pen that did less to get there than what Trent Williams does every weekend to NFL players. I mean, it's unbelievable. So they're looking at the best thing we could do for Trent is not have him come in. Mm-hmm. Just have him sit out. We'll give him some more money. We'll figure that out. We're not worried about that. But Aiyuk, to me, is a guy that they're looking at, Mike, and saying, dude, this is what your value is to us. And either sign it or quit complaining, because you're not going to sit out. You're not going to forego $18 million, right? So you either come in and play for that or don't. But we're not trading you unless we get a king's ransom for you in a trade. And the thing that makes that easy for the 49ers is I've done a bunch of 49er games over the last few years. And I've sat down with multiple defensive coordinators in this league that I respect immensely. Not one of them has said to me, damn, we're really worried about Aiyuk beating us. Man, we got to figure out a way to shut down Aiyuk. They tell me about Christian McCaffrey and the plan for Christian McCaffrey. And they talk about George Kittle and what are we going to do with George Kittle. They talk about Deebo Samuel and what are we going to do with Deebo Samuel when he lines up the backfield or when he's outside, all the jet sweep stuff. How are we going to deal with that? Like Brandon Aiyuk, to be fair, is a really good player, but he's the fourth option on that offense when you're talking about shutting a guy down. Like I have a feeling that most coordinators would say, hey, listen, if Brandon Aiyuk beats us, God bless the 49ers. They're that talented. But what we can't let Christian McCaffrey beat us. We can't let Deebo beat us. We can't let Kittle beat. Like, that's how they go about it. And the 49ers know that. The other thing about the 49ers is they're one of the top teams in football when it comes to personnel groupings and using heavy personnel, whether it's 2 tight ends, whether it's 2 running backs, whatever the case may be, 21 or 12 personnel, they'll sit in that a lot. So they're not dependent on 3 wide receivers. They're not a 3 wide receiver offense. Yeah, they, most of the time they'll have 2 wideouts in, but hey, man, they like the Jennings kid. They drafted Ricky Pearsall in the first round out of Florida. So like they've set themselves up. They've got options, Mike. So I just look at it like either you're going to accept what we gave you and understand where you're at, or don't play. Like those are your 2 options. I don't know about you. I think that they're not budging. So I think that either Brandon Aiyuk has to budge or he has to play for the $18 million. And I'll tell you this, the other thing is they even said to his agent, go out and find a trade partner. And there were teams that he didn't want to play for because he's like, I still want to be a player. So he wants to go to the playoffs and he wants to be a top 3 paid wide receiver. Dude, you're not going to get it both ways. Either go to New England and get the $30 million a year you want and know that you guys are going to suck for a while, or stay in San Francisco and take the $27, $28 million they offered you and have a chance to win a championship. So it becomes on what's most important for you.
So does CeeDee Lamb's deal getting done, will this help kind of ease the logjam, whether it comes to Aiyuk, Jamar Chase with the Bengals? I guess start with the importance of getting CeeDee Lamb done for Dallas. And then what does this mean for these other wide receivers?
CeeDee Lamb's in a different, he's in a different tier. Like CeeDee Lamb, when you play the Dallas Cowboys, the number one priority for you as a defense is how are we going to keep CeeDee Lamb away from the football? That's it. He's their guy. He makes up, it was some ridiculous 30 some odd percent of the offense goes through CeeDee Lamb. I mean, the guy is a phenomenal, and he's one of those dudes where he has as many catches just about out of the slot. I think he had more out of the slot than he did outside the numbers. So they use him all over the football field. And he's one of the few receivers. Like when I study tape and I'm doing a game and I study tape, I'll look at the last 3 games, every catch each receiver on the team made. Right. And what you'll see most of the time is there's receivers that run nothing but in-cutting routes. They run the shallow cross, they run the low cross, they run the high cross, they run the basic, they just run in-cutting routes. Then there are teams that receivers just run goes and sidelines. So they run the outs, they run the sticks, they run the corner routes, they do nothing but out-breaking routes. They run the comebacks on the sideline. And then, there's receivers that, are really good in the slot, running the seams and running little option routes and things of that nature. So, like every catch this guy had was on an option route, or every catch this guy had was on an in-breaking route. CeeDee Lamb runs every route in the route tree. There's nothing he can't run. And that's like Justin Jefferson. And those guys are unique. And those guys are the receivers that get paid. But then every other receiver goes, well, if that guy got paid, then I'm that guy. Well, maybe you're not that guy. So CeeDee Lamb is completely different to me than Brandon Aiyuk. And Brandon Aiyuk, again, is a really good player. Jamar Chase, unfortunately, plays in Cincinnati. And
What does that
right,
mean?
well, that means like, dude, you're a year early as far as Cincinnati's concerned. We're not going to renegotiate your contract, and he's pissed about it. And the guy has just absolutely performed for the last 3 years. But they're not worried about, like, I think that you could make him like one of the top 4 or 5 receivers, and I would do that for Jamar Chase because he's worth it. But they look at it like, no, we're not going to worry about you until we have to worry about you. And that's just, that's Mike Brown and the Cincinnati Bengals. And like, I'm not talking out of turn. That's how people think. And that's what their history has been. So I just think
So
that
they're cheap. They're just cheap.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, they did it to T. Higgins. They're like, no, we're not gonna give you a contract. You came and said, hey, can I get a new contract? No, we're not gonna do that. I think they end up franchising him or whatever. So it's just the history of the Cincinnati Bengals. And I think they did it with Joe Burrow, but they're not doing it with they're not doing it with position players other than their quarterback. And so I just don't think that I don't think that Jamar Chase is going to get big time new money, but which will end up in the end costing them more money to wait on it, right? Because certainly everybody starts to usurp him and guys, and then the next thing you know, it costs you another couple of $1 million to get the guy signed. But I just don't think Cincinnati's going to do anything. So they're going to make him play on that contract. And they've got the leverage of saying either you play or you forgo whatever it is. Like Aiyuk will be 18 million. You just let it go. I just don't think those guys are going to let that go because we always had this saying back in the day. It's a little different now, but you don't make up lost money.
Yep.
And so are you going to sign a contract that's going to make up for losing $18 million in your next contract? Well, I just don't think you are.
So on the subject of contracts, you and I were talking about this a few weeks ago. You would think when a team like the Jets goes out and trades for a player like Hassan Reddick, who's in the midst of a contract stalemate, it's kind of just assumed around the NFL, if you go out and acquire a guy who's in a contract stalemate, the first thing you do is you give a new contract, right?
Yeah.
And yet this stalemate continues between Reddick and the Jets. I mean, do you see an end in sight here?
It's really interesting when franchises choose to put a line on the sand. Like they put a line on the sand on this, and that I think Joe Douglas, their GM, and the Jets have basically come out and said, and I'm paraphrasing, we talked to them before this. They knew we weren't giving them a new contract. Like, we're going to play for a while. And I get that he's never played for the Jets. The guy is kind of a mercenary, if you will. He's been bouncing around from team to team to team. But that dude has a skill set. I mean, he's got a big time war daddy, rush the edge skill set. Guy's a freaking phenomenal player. And the Jets already have a great defense, but you put that dude on that defense, and wow. And to my understanding now, and again, this is just what I'm hearing, is that he really just wants to restructure and get guaranteed money up front. So he's like, okay, well, at least make these guarantees so I know I'm getting this much money. And the Jets are like drawing that line in the sand. Meanwhile, they were talking about firing Nathaniel Hackett, and Aaron Rodgers stepped in and goes, no, that's my guy. And they go, okay, he's our guy too then. Right. We'll just give you somebody else, to help out. But, again, it goes to this. Like, when you make that trade, even if you haven't produced for that franchise, the unwritten rule is we're going to redo your contract. And I'll give you, case in point, Exhibit A. Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy was a disappointment in Denver. It's true. So Jerry Jeudy, right?
Gotcha.
Jerry Jeudy is a bust or a disappointment in Denver. Gets traded to the Browns. Literally throws a brown sweatshirt on and walks into training camp and gets a brand new deal, just a bag of cash.
Yep.
because it's like I said, it's that unwritten rule, and so it just feels like even if they had an agreement, it just feels like to me it feels like a bit of a violation, Mike.
That never really changes with the Jets, does it? Never really changes.
Right. So we'll see. I mean, you would think that you would look at yourself and go, man, we got Aaron Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we've got a really talented offense. Everybody says about the O-line is not as good, but hey, your quarterback, like I always say, quarterback and sacks are a sacks are a quarterback driven statistic. So you've got a quarterback that knows how to get rid of the ball, manipulate the pocket, do all those things, right? Even though he's 40 and Aaron Rodgers, you've got a running game. You've got really good receivers. Like you've got and you've got one of the most loaded defenses on football. Like, this feels to me like we got everything put together. Let's make sure that people within our own locker room and that cover our team and everything realize how committed we are. It just feels odd to me that this is where we draw the line in the sand.
So is signing Reddick a happy ending here? Is that something that has to happen in order for you to pick the Jets to win the East, or do you still like them to win the East even without Reddick?
Yeah, I like them to win I still think they're outstanding on the defensive side of the ball. So I picked them to win the East regardless. But Reddick is just, I mean, that's a shot in the arm because that guy can flat out rush the passer, even though, like I said, he's a mercenary to be sure, but that dude can rush the passer. So, yeah, I just think it's something. And again, like I said, today we were talking about it on the show, Breakfast Ball. Check us out. We start on Monday, 8 to 10 Eastern. But we're talking about on the show today, like, and Craig Carton, one of my co-hosts, is a big Jets guy. So he's got all the Jets inside information. He's just asking to manipulate the contract so he got guaranteed money. And like, I don't know that he's looking for a bunch of newfound money, but he wants it guaranteed. And the Jets have just said absolutely not.
Meanwhile, at the bottom of the AFC East, you got the New England Patriots, who are in rebuilding mode. They drafted their quarterback in Drake May with the idea that hopefully this is the guy that leads them back to greatness, but he's not going to start the season. Yeah. We got rookie quarterbacks starting all over the place. Caleb Williams in Chicago, Jaden Daniels, Washington, Bo Nix in Denver, and yet Drake May can't beat out Jacoby Brissett, even though the head coach, Gerard Mayo, was on record like a week ago saying that May was the better quarterback throughout camp in the preseason. So what gives?
Actually, it was a few days ago where he came out and said, Drake May actually outplayed Jacoby Brissett. So I thought this was meritocracy, right? I thought the best players in the NFL got to play. Now, here's the interesting thing to me. Gerard Mayo went out and said, the truth, right? He was it's the most non-Belichickian thing you can do. Come out and say, yeah, you know what? Drake May outplayed Jacoby Brissett. And then it was almost like you sat back down and you realized, oh gosh, that's not what WWB, what is it? BB, Bill Belichick, WWBB,
WD. Would do.
Yeah, would do. So what would Bill Belichick do? He goes, man, I better start the veteran, right? And then you come out and I'm like, I thought the best players get to win or get to play. And then, I always think about Peyton Manning talking about that rookie year that he had where he threw a league record. It hasn't been broken to this day. 28 interceptions his rookie year. They went 3-13. But he said that experience of playing and getting beat down and beat up and learning the game at the NFL level led him to being 3-13 the next year. Because that doesn't happen if it's not taking those lumps at 3-13 to lead me to go 13-3 the following year. So I like there's value in playing. And I get that you don't think he's ready, but he outplayed Jacoby Brissett. I get that you think, maybe we'll give him, 4 or 5 weeks. But honestly, what are you going to learn in 4 or 5 weeks that you don't already know? You learn this game by playing this game and taking your lumps playing this game. So that's one that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Is that bad? I mean, I get it if Jacoby Brissett was a guy who, if Jacoby Brissett was Joe Flacco, he'd won a Super Bowl. Last year he played and helped Cleveland get into the playoffs and everything else. And you're like, hey, man, like this gives us the best chance to win early, and the kid will learn a lot from, Flacco. And I mean, Jacoby Brissett has not won a whole lot of games. It's not like he's played, it's not like he's been this stellar QB. I know he started for a while in Indianapolis, but it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, all right, let me toss out this theory. What about the idea being that, Drake May's been better than Jacoby Brissett, but that's just being better than Jacoby Brissett. It doesn't mean that Drake May is now ready to go out and face NFL defenses and take the hits and make the mistakes that maybe perhaps could set back his development. I guess maybe the larger question is, can you point to evidence and young quarterbacks over the last 5-10 years that you feel without a shadow of a doubt that their careers never really got going and they suffered because they were thrown in too early?
Sure, I think you can make that argument. I think there's some guys you can make that argument on, but I guess there's part of me, like Drake May is 6'4", 250 pounds or whatever he is. He's a big, thick kid. Like I would say, do you think the New England Patriots are going to suck with Jacoby Brissett?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think they're going to suck with Drake May?
Yes.
Yeah. So you're going to suck, right? I mean, we've come down to we've drawn the conclusion that you're going to suck.
You're going to suck.
We might as well get our young quarterback those ugly reps. Like that's like, listen, if this is the direction you're going, and I get it, that's what you want to do, and you're going to take some of the beating off. How long is that going to last? 4 weeks? 5 weeks? Do we both agree he's going to play this year?
Oh, of course.
Drake May is going to play at some point this year, probably sooner rather than later, right? So if we already know we're going to wait till the bye week in week whatever it is, 6 or 7 or 8 or whatever it is, right? Let's just wait. Why? Like, what difference? Wouldn't it be better to have that learning curve early, and then eventually, like, hey, now in week 8, he's already had all those bumps and bruises, right? Mentally and physically. Now all of a sudden, maybe we get a better sense of what he is week 8 through week 17. It just doesn't. You already said that he played better. Like, it doesn't make a whole lot. Like, if I'm in the fan base, I'm like, woohoo, good, whoop-dee. You're going to watch Jacoby Brissett for, 4 or 5 weeks.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens. We're inching ever closer. And when we talk next week, we got games to preview, my man. We got games to preview.
Yes. All right. And I'm going to try to get us hooked up in a studio starting next week at some point. So I'll be in a studio. You'll be in a studio. I think I can make it's technology, Mike. I'm not good at it.
No.
I'm not. So
no.
I'm not making any guarantees.
Yeah. Don't you step this up yourself. You're going to need help.
Right. If I have to plug something in and then push on, that's about the extent of what I'm capable of. Okay.
Even that might be a little too much.
Yeah. Well, I've got to have somebody show me what to plug in and then where to push the on button.
That's right.
Anyhow. Hey, listen, for everybody involved in the Stinkin Truth podcast, for Mike Evans, I'm Mark Schlereth. We appreciate you guys. We'll talk to you guys next week. The start of the regular season. We're going to have football. Regular season football from now until what? February sometime.
February. Beautiful.
It's going to be great. All right, buddy. I'll talk to you.
All right.